Hello, my name's Paul Haig. I'm rebuilding a Lotus Elan S2. In this video we'll look at seats, so the repair of the seat frames and also retrimming. These are the seat frames from the Lotus Elan Series 2, 1966. They are different to the later seat frames, which have the serpentine springs that go up the back. On these ones you can see they've got just standard coil springs on the back. Other than that, they're very similar. They are made out of quite a light gauge tubular steel, and then these type of springs, which you can see in furniture manufacturers still use these types of springs today. And they've got these little joining hooks, so these strips run across and up the sides, joined with these little joining pieces, and then you can see there's some wire that sort of creates the frame that you put the foam and other cloth pieces on underneath the vinyl skin. I had to replace these tubes because they were corroded, so this sits on the floor of the car and there's a little recess, and water clearly gathered there, and these are corroded, so I managed to buy the exact same tube diameter and gauge, so that's easily available, and I cut them here and replaced this piece so that I didn't have to recreate this crushed fold that's in the corners. This mechanism is how the seats adjust. So you press this down and move the whole of the seat backwards and forwards. So that's how you make the seat move backwards and forwards. So there's some clamps go on these, so this just pivots underneath the clamps. Yeah, some little coil springs that hold this sort of wire onto the seat frames, and they just hook into little holes in the frame. A few of those needed replacing, so I managed to source some that were very similar. These springs on the back were all perfectly fine. Oh, these springs, you'll see they're a slightly different pitch. So these two at the front are the original. I had to replace these three because they'd broken and been sort of held together with bits of wire. These springs are held to these wires just with little metal sheet metal pieces that just roll round. They're all covered in paint, so they're not so easy to see, but that's how the bits of wire in the springs are held together. Okay, and these are the vinyl covers from the Retrim kit. So you can see the two seat parts and the two back parts, and then those two bits over there, the plain pieces, fit on the rear of the seats. Just have a closer look at them. Here you can see the welding, so this has been heat welded, and on the underside there's foam, which is also part of this heat welding, which is why you get this shape. The sides don't have any foam underneath them, but you can see this piping. So there's the piping stitched between these two pieces. If I turn it over, there's hessian on the back, and up the sides, that's where the heat welding is, and there's thick foam glued to the back of that, and then glued on the back of that this piece of hessian, and in the side, so running along this edge, sewn into a little loop, there is a loop that holds a wire rod, metal rod, which runs down there. So this is how it's going to be held onto the frame. So through there is going to be passed, I'm pretty sure, some wire pieces that will wire it to the frame. So it's that rod that's going to hold the whole of this cover to the frame, and then it will also be pulled round and clipped as well. So that gives you an idea. The finish on this vinyl is a pretty good match for the original. The company that's made these is called Newton Commercial, and they sell these kits. It's, well, not cheap, but I guess it's all relative, so it's a very, very faithful copy. So probably good value for money, but it's not a cheap exercise to do this retrimming of seats. These are the foam pieces from the retrim kit for the seats. Just show you one a bit closer. So it's a couple of layers of foam, and I've got a nicer finish on one side than the other, and they're clearly shaped to fit the frame. This is the back cover. It screws onto these plates which are welded to the frame. You can see there's holes in these already from the original, and this is the new back. It's a piece of hardboard with the vinyl just stapled all the way around the edges, which is pretty much like the original. I've still got the originals. Could put them back, I suppose, because the screw holes would align with those. I'll have to see how good a match the material is. If I'm not happy, I could use these new ones. The kit comes with pretty comprehensive instructions, quite a few pages with nice pictures, and some fixing wires, some screws with the little washers which hold the back covers on, C-clips which are going to hold the vinyl covers to the frame, and lots of staples which are also going to be used to hold it all onto the frame and the wire. So the first thing I have to do is on the piece that's going to go up the back, the instructions give a length along this. This is where this rod is in this calico material. There's a loop, and you've got to push these wires behind the rod, and it gives dimensions. So these are going to go through and tie to this bar wire that's welded to the seat frame, and the positions are clearly between those two springs, just above that one and just below that one. I've applied contact adhesive to this edge of the foam, and the idea is to pull it together to make a round edge, so I'll have a go. Oh, look at that, it works. I've folded the pieces of wire into staples, so these are going to push round the back of those rods and hold it onto the frame. So I've put those staples through, and they are going to fasten the seat cover to this wire. This is now wired to the base along those two runs, and I've put a few C-clips just to hold the back in the correct position. Well, I think it's the correct position. I've trimmed the hessian, which is going to glue around these side supports, and then got these foam pieces. So this foam piece is going to position here, has to be glued down near that seam where the wire rod holds the seat cover to the frame. And the idea is this pulls over, and folds that foam around the frame as well. And this is going to pull around the front. You get the idea. Hopefully you can see that. Obviously all those wrinkles will disappear once it's properly stretched round into the right position. There's the seat frame again. This is the base part of the kit, and I spoke to a professional trimmer about this. I was using a piece of wires to go around in this little loop. Let me just refocus this. Spoke to a professional trimmer and they said I'd use tie wraps. You've got more control over how tight you make it, just much easier to do. So that's what I'm trying. Seems a good idea. And the idea is the seat base ties, those tie wraps will tie it down to this wire on both sides. So let's just pull that in. I'll show you it when I've got it in place. One thing I should point out though, this bar that runs across the back is pretty key. So the seat has to go, the base seat has to go underneath there. And when you feed the back one in as well, that also goes underneath there. So it's quite a little gap to squish all these bits down to fit through. So got this pulled through to the point where this bit is sewn up. And it is quite a struggle to get that to pull through. As you can see, it's quite you have to squash the foam quite a lot to get it to start, and then this foam at the front, just tip it up, is just proud of this front bar. Sorry, this foam at the front is just proud of the front bar, so it's going to get pulled around and just make a nice cushioning on the front edge. So I can feed these tie wraps through onto the frame now. Oops. As you can imagine, around the frame. I'll just get that done. So those are now in around the wire. Here they are. So if we tighten these, it will start to pull the seat cushion down, or pull those wires down, and give the seat that sort of characteristic look. Where these are going to come down at the edge. So I can tighten it a bit more than that, I suspect. But you get the idea. As that bar goes down, it's just going to pull those edges down. So I've just tightened those a little more. And you can see how it curves away, and then this side bit gets filled with foam to give it that characteristic look. So next thing to do is just sort out this hessian, and then I've got to split or cut this piece to allow it to go past this bar at the side. Let's bring it around this way. So I'm going to put a cut in the inside piece to allow this outside piece to come around this bar. So next step is to glue this hessian over the frame at the side, and then is to put some foam in. And I've got the old foam off the original seat, which is nicely shaped. You can see the original rust marks. I've also got new foam, but it strikes me that this is probably easier to use. So I'm going to try with this. I've discovered that if it needs padding out, if these corners don't look filled, this isn't properly pulled over, but you get the idea. So there's the foam in place, and then you pull it over, and as you tighten it round, it's going to tighten it up. So the tricky bits are getting rid of those wavy marks, This edge will pull around. It's got these big long tails of beading which is fixed to the springs underneath, and you roll this front edge over and glue it. So you need to get rid of them little pockety sort of hollow bits. So is to put some foam underneath this foam. So for example, if that needed building up, put some foam underneath it, and then you've still got this smooth surface. If you put it on top, you see it through the vinyl. So that's the next step. Let's see how that goes. That's glued over. Can definitely recommend one of these and these. So it's got this top that just spins on, and you just pump the glue through this brush, and as long as you put the top back on, it keeps that nice and wet, and if that gets too full of glue you can unscrew it. Unscrews the other way, and just put it in some solvent. The instructions do say to glue the foam along this edge, but I'm not going to, because I'm not confident about it. So I'm going to build it without, and if it's okay I might go back and glue it, or I might just leave it. We'll see. I've got these little hog rings which you break off and then use to fasten the vinyl to the wires. I haven't got the proper tool, I'm just using pliers, but you get the idea. That's going to stretch around the front, and I roll that front edge around. So that's pretty neatly done, I think, and I'm just doing this side now. So again, when that's stretched down, yeah, so I'm just going to hog tie that on there, and then just temporarily clip this down here. I've got these C-clips which just snap around the frame, and they dig into the vinyl just to hold it. Just to hold it in place. Yep, and then I think I can glue the front edge. So got that bit placed, just lay it on its back, and now you can see these bits which will tie onto the springs, put some tension on the front. But first I'm going to glue this around the front bar, and then glue that bit. Tie off those, I think. I'll not glue at the moment this bit, I'll just use that to tie it off and see how it looks. I did glue it in the end, so rolled that over and then tied these with one hog tie and one tie wrap, just for good measure. So let's just put the right way up. So that's what the base is looking like now. Pretty good. It's a funny little thing going on there which you can see in the light. It's this seam again. I'm sort of hoping the seams might just straighten them out. Oh, hopeful thinking probably. Wishful thinking. A little bit something going on there. That's not perfect. This side looks a bit better, but generally pretty satisfied really. Okay, here's the back, or the squab. So same procedure, it's got this metal rod in the sewn in here to that tube. I've just put these tie wraps around, ready to fasten it onto the frame at the back. At the bottom, where the base squeezed through that tube at the bottom, you might remember, it's quite tight. I've now got to feed through the squab, the back, hessian and vinyl underneath the same bar, so it pulls it back. Took quite some squeezing through last time. I had to use a little plate to sort of push it through, so I'm just going to do that. I have pulled this back squab bit through that bar, and I've C-clipped the base piece. It was very, very tight. I think the idea is to hog ring this on now through there, so that might get done. I think I'll fix the rest of it in place first. have a quick look. So I've tightened up the tie wraps to pull the base back, and now I've got to put these side bits of foam in. There's some extra material here at the bottom that folds upwards, so it ends up looking like that, and then this bit of beading gets tied around the base of the chair. So side foam bits next. I've got the foam in the sides and I've pulled the side skirts over. I'm not very happy with this rippling at the top corners, so I might pull it back and see if we can just get a bit more foam to push that out. Down here, see this beading just runs underneath, and then you tie it off underneath, and at the back it pulls over like this, and eventually you're going to tie it off to the wire that's underneath there. Oh, sorry, this wire. So just tie it off all down the sides as well, just to tension the sides a little. This folds up underneath, so it's just folded up. It makes a funny little shape there, but it's not too bad. So, just going to try packing these out. So I have now tied off the backs with tie wraps. I think originally it would have been done with wire. So back panel to go on. I'm reasonably satisfied with the shape around here. I suspect it could be done more perfectly than I've managed, but I think it's not bad. Happy. So that's it. I've screwed the back on. I used the old one as a template. So I've picked up on the old holes in the frame. It's not as perfect as a professional would do, I suspect, but I think it's pretty good. I've fixed the seats in, and I've put the centre console in as well, just to see what that looked like. Well, I've cleaned it up. That's the original one. It's got cracks in it, but I think I could live with that, because it looks correct. Pretty pleased with the seats. So after many years I finally get to sit in it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.